As Christians and good American citizens, we want to pay all the taxes that we legitimately owe, but we don't want to overpay them. We don't want to tip the IRS for good service or anything like that. Therefore, it's in our best interest to take every legal means that we can to reduce the taxes that we actually pay. One way to potentially do that is through Roth conversions. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Thanks for tuning in. If we haven't met before, I'm Planner Mike, a certified financial planner professional and owner of True Wealth Financial. I believe that retirement should be prosperous, enjoyable, and purposeful. A lot of people dream about retirement, but find the actual path navigating into it complex, confusing, and challenging. And it makes sense because it's relatively all new. I help Christians create and optimize a retirement plan so that they can retire with confidence. Today, I want to discuss Roth conversions. If you're watching or listening to this right when it's released, you'll know that it's right around Christmas time. So Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year's. 'Tis the season, if you will. 'Tis the season. It's a great time to take some time to recognize and reflect on the birth of Christ, our Lord and Savior, Lord Jesus Christ, leaving, right, the throne and glory, coming down here as a baby, being born, living a perfect life, dying for us on Calvary as a substitutionary death so we can have forgiveness of sin. So it's a great time to do that. It's also a very good time to have some rest and relaxation and some rejuvenation with maybe friends or family or trips or something like that. But it's potentially also a great time to complete a Roth conversion. And that's essentially what I've been doing for a handful of clients this time of the year. And so I want to kind of go through that process, explain to you why we would do that and how it may be helpful to you. Now, you have to recognize that this is a resilience slash optimization technique or tactic, right? So when it comes to retirement plans, you want to have a defined plan first, then a feasible plan. Then we try to make that plan more resilient. It can withhold the shocks of future potential risks. And then we're trying to optimize it, right? And so this is really kind of a tactic or a technique that we can use for those last two things to make something more resilient against potentially higher taxes in the future or against higher inflation in the future or even less market returns to some degree. It helps with things like that as well. It helps also protect against untimely death of one of the spouses, as we'll see a little bit later in this show. And it's an optimization technique. It's really to try to pay less taxes, keep more of your money in your investments, help it to grow, and really see help legacy goals of potentially passing it on to charities or institutions or children in a tax-free manner. So we're going to talk essentially what a Roth conversion is, the benefits of it, when to potentially do it, and how to go about doing it. So first of all, what is a Roth conversion? A Roth conversion is essentially when you take money or funds or investments that are in a pre-tax or traditional qualified plan, generally a IRA, a pre-tax traditional IRA, and we want to convert or move money over to a Roth account. So generally a Roth IRA. And essentially when you make that conversion, it becomes a qualifying event. So you have to pay the taxes. It's really like you've taken a distribution over here, pay tax on it, and then put it over here, right? So that's essentially what a Roth conversion is. We're converting money from one tax advantage plan to another tax advantage plan. A Roth is a great thing because it grows tax-free, right? So the way to think about a traditional IRA is, I heard a guy say one time, it's tax infested, right? Which means that essentially a quarter, give or take, anywhere from 15 to 25% of the money that's in your traditional pre-tax IRAs or 401ks or 403bs, there's a portion of that money that has to go off to the IRS. They just haven't collected yet. So it is tax infested. And so, the government's essentially subsidizing your retirement investing, right? It's in their best interest to do so. They let you keep some money and grow that money over time, but then they take it back, right? So that's what a Roth conversion is. So what are the benefits of doing this? Well, number one benefit is we can get more money into that tax-free growth. A Roth IRA or a Roth 401k or Roth 403b or Roth TSP or whatever it is, anything that's a Roth, that growth is tax-free. So if money's in a pre-tax or a Roth account, this is tax infested. It has money that's taxable that'll eventually go off to Uncle Sam. This is all of yours. And so it grows and grows and grows, and you will never owe taxes on it under current law, right? And number two, it'll reduce future RMDs. RMDs are required minimum distributions. That's essentially that, again, this pre-tax, the government essentially says, hey, we'll let you keep our money. That's how they look at it for a period of time. But when you reach a certain age, currently for anybody who's not already taking them, it'll be either 73 or 75. The government says, hey, you've had that money long enough. We're going to force you to begin taking distributions to create that taxable event so that we can get our money back. They call that RMDs, required minimum distributions. Well, the Roth bucket doesn't have those RMDs. They already got their tax money. There's no more tax money in that account. So they just say, we don't really care about that. We don't make you take money out of that, giving you more flexibility in the future. Number three benefit is it'll reduce future taxes, or potentially could reduce future taxes, right? And so the idea is that you pay taxes now to pay less taxes later. This is especially true, and we'll see it in a little example here, of the widow's tax trap, right? So right now, when you're married, you're in a higher bracket because you're a married filing jointly bracket. Well, when one spouse dies, the second spouse goes to a single bracket. And if the income is still higher, especially because them RMDs are making you take money out of the accounts, then they pay higher taxes in that. Last benefit is that you control the tax rate, right? So we know what current tax rates are today. We don't know what they'll be in the future. So for example, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is set to expire 2026. Maybe there's some probability, a higher probability, I'd say now, that that will get extended, but we don't know. We don't know what future tax rates are going to look like. So you have the control to pay the tax that you know today or some unknown amount in the future, right? You can leave that up to risk, if you will, or fate or whatever it is. My general view is that the government is highly in debt and they have to pay that down over time in the future. And so more taxes result in the higher expenses and the higher debt that needs to be paid. And so my supposition is that in the future, tax rates will be higher than they are today. That's my personal take on it. You can have your own take on that accordingly. Right. So we talked about what the Roth conversion is, right? We talked about the benefits of it. So then when to do it, right? When to do it. Now, like I said, 'tis the season that we've been doing Roth conversions. Generally in our practice, we wait till the end of the year to do them, especially for people that have some still income coming in. Because if you do a Roth conversion in the beginning of the year but you don't know what their income is going to be for the year, you either might have forced them into a higher bracket. You might not have done enough conversion. So generally speaking, this is something that we do in our practice at the end of the year, December timeframe, where we have a good idea of what the income is going to be throughout the year, and then we can convert that calculation after we calculate it. Generally speaking, in a season of life, this is done kind of post-retirement for most people, but prior to that RMD age, prior to 73 when those kick in. So, you're retired, maybe you have Social Security, maybe you have a pension, but you're not making, six figures or so. Generally, is not the time to do this. You've retired, your income, generally speaking, is lower. And so before those RMDs kick in, you have a time window of 5 to 10 years to essentially get money out of this tax deferred account and into this tax-free account. And so that's when a lot of times the season when people do it. Now, the reality is you can do it anytime. You don't have to do it in December, and you don't have to do it, kind of when you're in that early retirement stage. Anyone can do it at any point at a time. If you're more in the wealth building stage, farther away from retirement, I would say don't do that until you have your house paid for. So a baby step 7 type of tactic. Again, this is all optimization, but really anybody can do them at any time. Something I've thought about doing over the last couple of years, and I might do it over the next couple, is move the money I have to get it over in that Roth bucket, because Roth is awesome and it grows tax-free. Right. So what are other opportunities you might want to do this? Let's say you have 2 people that are working. One stays home for a while. One comes home. One takes a layoff. You take a sabbatical. You change jobs. Your income has reduced temporarily for some reason, even during your 30s, 40s, or 50s, something like that, you've taken an income dip for a year, that might be a great time to do a Roth conversion. Another good time to do, especially for the retiree side of things, is when the market crashes, right? So if the market crashes in value and you convert the same amount of shares, but for less price, right? You can get more bang for your buck on those actual conversions. So those are some time frames of when to go about looking or exploring at doing Roth conversions. If you're finding this information helpful or valuable, please hit the like button. It's a great way to let me know to do more shows like this. Plus, it's a great way to say thank you. So how do we actually go about doing this? Well, obviously, first of all, you have to have a traditional account of some sort, generally a traditional IRA, and you have to have a Roth IRA account open. You have to open the account first. What we generally do is we try to quote unquote fill the tax bucket. So we figure out what tax bracket you're in now, and we try to fill in the amount of income to raise you to the top of that bracket. And I'll show you an example here in a couple of minutes in Right Capital where we can see that. But other things you want to avoid is potentially Social Security taxation. Social Security is taxed like no other income in our tax code. And so that's something to be mindful of. IRMA, which is essentially Medicare surcharges. If your income's too much, you could trigger that and pay more for Medicare in the future. You'll be mindful maybe of other tax phase outs that you might hit because of this. So for example, if you have kids in college and you're getting the American Opportunity Tax Credit, that might be something you want to kind of watch your cliffs and your phase out limits on, so you don't lose out other benefits in the tax code. Taxes are obviously very complex and confusing. And so, either you want to work with a professional, tax professional, or financial professional to do that, or some kind of financial planning platform or spreadsheets to do the math to help you out with that. And so that's what I want to do. I want to kind of give you a little case study here in Right Capital, kind of walk through that process and some benefits of it. And then essentially, once you get that calculation done, you would simply submit a form to the custodian or the account holders where those accounts are, and they will move the money or the investments over for you. So let's jump into Right Capital here, and we'll show you an example of the benefits and how to go about doing that. So jumping in here, Right Capital here, I want to take a moment and just illustrate what we mean by filling up the bucket, as well as showing you some of the benefits of doing a Roth conversion. So a very simple example here. We have David and Lisa Sample. They are 67 years old, essentially retired. They have $500,000 in a pre-tax IRA. They live off of, or essentially they want to live off about $5,000 a month, and $4,000 of that essentially comes from the Social Security. So very, very simple example here just to illustrate the concept. So if we go to, from a tax perspective, we can see that their current taxes, they don't pay anything, right? Even despite having essentially $60,000 of income, they don't pay any taxes, at least early part in the year, because they're taking $16,000 out of their traditional IRA. They're getting $44,000 from Social Security, but only $3,000 of it's taxed. Again, the way Social Security is taxed is different than anything else. It's below the standard deduction, and so they essentially owe no taxes. But that changes once they hit 73, where they start hitting those RMDs and are required to take money out. And then we have David dying off at 87, and we can see the widow tax trap. The rates come down for Lisa, and she starts paying some taxes. So we can see that again here in our current plan, where essentially they have no taxes and they start taking money out, and it goes up, up, and up. And by the time, again, when David dies, you can see that Lisa gets into the next 12 to 15% tax bracket. So the idea here is then we pay taxes, we fill up the bracket. So if we're just looking at this 10% bracket, for example, all that white space, what we do is we force a distribution up to that amount, where we're taking money out of our pre-tax IRA and moving it to our Roth IRA, the amount each year of moving money over, right? So for example, you can see that it calculates the amounts for us. So this year would be $18,000. We'd move it from the pre-tax over to the Roth account. Essentially what that does is over time, it reduces them paying less tax, right? So the green is the proposed strategy where we implement this. You can see all the taxes in years basically 78 to 88 essentially are reduced. So we pay more today, but pay less later, and it results in $4,000 less in the plan. The more money you keep in paying taxes means the more money there is in the accounts over time, the higher net worth you have. This has a larger effect essentially on your overall plan of record, right? So again, the idea is that your probability of success should increase, as well as your median assets we have at the end. If you don't know what those values mean, you can look at a episode going back a couple weeks ago where we explained those. All right. So again, the idea is we kind of raise up their tax rates over the first couple of years, essentially to have them pay taxes. So this is a summary just in going to here, the 10%, they end up paying, they have more money, they pay less taxes, and they have to take out less in the future, right? So here's a good example of RMDs. You can see that in the base plan, they have to take out more money at 73 over the years, but the proposed, they take out less over time. So that's an example. If this couple, for example, wanted to, they could be more aggressive and go to the next tax bracket, potentially paying even less taxes overall, having less withdrawals. Because what this ends up doing is essentially is it will get rid of all RMDs. Essentially, they have a little bit 73, but then it goes away. And we can see at the ends of the accounts here, essentially by the time they're 73, all of their money is essentially now in tax-free accounts. So it's invested, it's growing, it's tax-free. The surviving spouse doesn't have to worry about that tax burden anymore. There's inheriting children don't have to worry about that tax burden anymore. Essentially, it is done because what we did over time was we raised up to this bracket. Essentially, we maxed it out right around this case, right around 73, and they have no taxes thereafter, right? So that's kind of the idea, is that their taxes go away after 74. It gives you a lot more flexibility. So that's the benefits of doing a Roth conversion. The other way you can do this, if you don't have a planning platform, is you can do this in Excel too. This is an Excel spreadsheet that I have built out that I use to really fine tune. So I use Right Capital to kind of get me ballpark, and then I really fine tune, literally increasing the conversions dollar by dollar to maximize that conversion out. Essentially, you can make your own tax sheet here. So for example, it's the same numbers where they're taking $44,000 for Social Security, taking regular distributions to get to $60,000 of income. They're under that standard deduction, so they essentially owe no tax. If we go to the brackets, you can see they don't pay any tax here. Well, if we start adding a distribution, I think that one was $18,000 for capital. Just an example, do 15. You can see now that essentially we're starting to get into that 10% tax bracket. And so we keep adding income here to raise this up essentially. And then what we do is we just, towards the end, we make part of that conversion, the amount that they owe from a withholding perspective, we withhold that same amount. And then essentially they don't owe anything when they do their taxes, and the conversion pays for the taxes, and we withhold there as well. So essentially, if you know how to, you can build this out in a spreadsheet as well. This is just master sheet that I use for a lot of different things like SEPs and business accounting stuff, Social Security, tax brackets, withholdings, et cetera, et cetera. So different way to go about calculating a Roth conversion. Today, we talked about the potential means to reduce your taxes through Roth conversions. We talked about what they are. We talked about benefits of them, talked about when to do them, how to do them, and then showed you an example of the benefits in a real life case study. If you're still with me and find this information helpful, please consider subscribing. Greatly helps and supports me and do this show, and helps you be notified of future episodes. Ideally, Roth conversions should be done in conjunction with an overall comprehensive plan, one that takes your spending, your savings, your debt, your investing, your taxes, your insurance, your estate planning, and your goals into consideration. If you don't have a good retirement plan, a good first step might be to engage in a True Wealth retirement assessment. It's a financial checkup of sorts to help you see how retirement ready you are. We'll help you understand where you are holistically, give you access to Right Capital, and a one-page plan of recommendations to improve your journey into retirement. If you already have a retirement plan, a good micro action might be this week to go back and revisit to determine the amount of space or room you have in your tax bracket and explore what that might look like from a dollar perspective of a Roth conversion. Remember, as good American citizens, we want to pay every penny we legitimately owe, but we don't want to overpay them. Roth conversions is a great means to potentially reduce your future tax burden. Hope this helps you on your path to a prosperous, enjoyable, and purposeful retirement. Until the next time, hope you have a great day. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this week's episode of the True Wealth Financial Show. I encourage you to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Additionally, you can find more information on our website at www.truewealth.show. One final note, though, as we wrap up to today's show. While I hope the information was helpful, valuable, and insightful, it's really for information and educational purposes only. Prior to making any decisions or taking any actions, I'd strongly encourage you to talk to your legal, tax, estate, or financial advisor who's familiar with the unique circumstances of your particular personal situation. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, hope you have a great day.